Welcome back. Hello, everyone. Good morning and good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome to Cloud DevOps Batch 54. Before I start the session, I would like to give a quick recap on what's being covered in the previous session. Previous session, we are talking about Linux, the importance of Linux in order to start your journey on cloud or DevOps or the cloud automation. What exactly you need to start with is something we have learned. And we decided that Linux is the first thing that we need to start with, because without Linux, it's practically impossible to start any of these tools, either Amazon Cloud, Google Cloud, Bash, Ansible, whatsoever it may be, whatsoever the things that we are going to cover. Nothing is possible if we are trying to learn without Linux. So Linux is inevitable. We need to start with Linux. Also, we have seen in operating system, there are two varieties of operating system. One is graphical user interface, which is nothing but your Windows. You do anything, it has to go through some options like right click, left click, click that button, click this button and all. Such kind of operating systems are referred as Windows, and we are least interested about it because the business, yesterday we saw certain graphs which show 99% of the world's enterprise infrastructure and corporate infrastructure is on the top of command line operating system, which is nothing but Linux. Okay, so we decided to go with Linux, but we also saw that Linux is is an open source software. Since it is an open source software, we also discussed what is an open source. Majority of the people think that an open source software is if a software which is free, but it is not 100% true. So an open source software is majorly constrained about the code. The code will never ever be proprietary. That means if you designed a product and if you have kept it as open source and if you contributed it to the community, even if anyone takes the code, they have to keep it open. Okay, such kind of concept is called as open source, and an open source may or may not be free. Certain softwares, if you're using it just for your personal purpose, you don't have to pay anyone. At the same time, if you are an enterprise company where you are taking an open source software and you're making money out of it with the same brand name, you need to pay to that software. That's how the open source community works. And also, open source softwares may or may not need license. Again, it's the type of license, the type of software that we are using. And when you need to pay money, when you don't have to pay money is what we discussed. And also we have seen what is the first layer of any operating system and how the concept of command line operating system made Linux to originate, how Unix, which is nothing but a command line operating system, which is highly dependent on the hardware, came up into picture. Each and every company has their own flavor of operating system with respect to Unix. If you take a company called as IBM, IBM has their own flavor of Unix, which is nothing but IBM AIX, that is no longer available, that was sunset. And if you take about HP also have their own flavor of Unix called as HP Unix, even that is sunset. Now the world is completely behind Linux. Everything, whatever you see, whatever you consume in the internet is on the top of Linux. So we need to consume Linux. Also, we have seen what is infrastructure as a service, what is platform as a service, what is software as a service. We also seen how licensing in Windows works with respect to Windows Server works, with respect to how licensing in Linux works. Keeping all this context in mind, we concluded that Linux is inevitable and we want to start with Linux. Also, in the space of Linux, there are 300 plus varieties of Linux. So since it is an open source, everyone can take the code, they can rebrand it, they can start redistributing it. So, but among all, Red Hat is something which is very famous. So we would like to decide, go with the Red Hat Linux or the CentOS Linux. Red Hat Linux or CentOS Linux, both of them are same. The only thing is Red Hat gives you support and CentOS you don't get support. Okay, also to start with Linux, okay, there are a lot of ways that you can learn Linux. So one among them is if you have a laptop which is Linux, you can learn that. Even if you don't have a Linux laptop, on the top of Windows laptop, on the top of your Windows, you can install a software called as OracleVox. That is a software which helps you running multiple operating system. And you can also use something called as Katacoda, which is a Linux as a service, which you can get it on your browser. But we don't want to go with any of the options. Instead, want to go with an option called we want to go with AWS Cloud, because we want to consume cloud services. And I would like to create an account on AWS, and I would like to create a server on the top of AWS. And then we can start our cloud journey, starting with Linux learning. Okay, so AWS is the only cloud provider which offers you a free account forever, and you can also consume almost all the services for free for the first 12 months, which means by the time you start learning, within 3 to 4 months, you can consume most of the available limits in Amazon. But there are certain constraints if you need to follow. If you follow, you won't get more than 100-200 rupees per month bill. But majority of the times, if you follow my tips and techniques, you end up paying nothing. Okay, so also starting from today, I would like to adopt as much as terminology that is related to cloud. Also, I have given you an assignment yesterday, told you to create an AWS account and get that activated. I got majority of the people confirmed that they are able to create an AWS account, and they have activated the account, and they got an email and they are able to sign in. Good job, everyone. So today I expect every one of you to have AWS account. In case if you are having challenges creating AWS account, please do let me know. I can help you with that. Okay, people who have used a credit card, their account will be activated in less than just 2 to 3 minutes. But if you are using debit card, it takes less than 24 hours to activate. So yesterday, along with the session recording, I have also forwarded you a document that shows you how to create an AWS account. In case if any one of you have missed this, so you can find it here. However, I have shared this process over the along with the session recording. If you have not find that, at the bottom of the screen also, I'm going to attach this so you can find it there. Okay, so yeah, so all you need to do is you need to create an AWS account. You need to follow the process. And once you have your AWS account, now you can start signing in. Let me add this inside the session recording so that you don't miss it. Let me add this right now. So yeah, before I proceed further, if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know so that I can help you with that. AWS account creation. Okay, so that you don't have to worry about it. That's all. Okay, however, I have published it here, but in case if you don't have it, or in case if you missed it, you can still find it here. All right. Let me check the chat window. There are no questions. There are no hands raised. Also, one more request, anyone. This training is not just I speak, you listen. Whenever you have any sort of questions, feel free to post your questions in the chat window. You can see the questions. You can see the chat window at the bottom of your screen. In case if you would like to speak, just raise your hand. The moment you raise your hand, I'll give you an option to unmute and speak. You can speak. Okay, anytime. Just raise your hand. Okay, thank you. All right, guys. So my goal for today is very, very simple. My goal for today is, assuming that you all have AWS accounts. Here is my goal. My goal for today. Very simple, very straight. I want to create, since we want to learn AWS Linux, I need to have a server. I want to create a Linux server. And I would like to connect to this server. This is my goal. My goal for today is very, very simple, straight. Okay, so I'll show you the true flavor of AWS today. All right, let's start. This is my goal for today. No big deal. That's it. If I'm able to create a server and if I'm able to connect to this, I'm good. Perfect. All right. So let's start. First, let's try to connect with AWS account and then we can start. Okay. So before even connecting to that, let's try to see the AWS global infrastructure. In what all countries AWS is there? Okay. In what all countries AWS is doing business? Let's try to see this. Okay, this is a global infrastructure map of AWS where they say here green indicates Amazon's data center, which is operational. Here orange ball indicates they are still constructing that or still in the process of building that region. Okay, region is nothing but a geographical place. Okay, if you see this in India we have two regions, Amazon regions. Amazon has presence in India in two different places. One they have it in Hyderabad and another they have it in Mumbai. So Hyderabad is something which they recently launched in October, November of 2022. It's been just 6 months they have launched it. And in Mumbai, it has been there from 2016. And if you see this, even in Australia, they have two places, one in Melbourne and one is in Sydney. And for example, in Africa, if you see this, they have it in Cape Town. And if you take it South America, they have it in Sao Paulo. And if you see this, AWS is trusted in such a way that even the government organizations in United States host their infrastructure on AWS cloud. There are some special places in AWS where the government organizations in AWS host their infrastructure. For example, if you take this AWS government cloud US East. At the same time, if you see this AWS government cloud US West. So these two places are designated to host only the government related infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, servers or managed services or whatsoever it may be, it is not for us. Okay, so in total, as of today, as of this recording, 15th of May 2023, Amazon has presence in 31 physical regions, 31 regions across the world. Okay, so after seeing this, you would get a doubt. What is this region, Manu? What is this availability zone? And what is this point of presence? So you take any cloud, these three terms remain the same. You take Amazon cloud or you take Google cloud or you take Microsoft Azure cloud, the concept of region, availability zone and point of presence remains the same. So now you can understand how big player Amazon is. 85% of the market is on AWS cloud because Amazon has the first customer advantage because they're in the industry from 2005 until 2014, they are the monopoly in the industry. Now, I would like to explain you how things work with a small example. For example, you take a very famous website, e-commerce website in India called as Flipkart. Let's take Flipkart. Okay, so this is Flipkart. And for example, Flipkart, I want to create infrastructure for Flipkart. Okay, so let's say this is Flipkart and Flipkart want to create some servers as a part of their business in India. In business, if they want to create servers, they need to choose in which country they want to choose. Here, since Flipkart, which is an e-commerce company which does business in India, it doesn't make sense to create their infrastructure on United States. Okay, so if your business is in India, you need to create infrastructure in India. If your business is in United States, you need to create infrastructure here. For example, if your business is in Australia, you need to create infrastructure in respective region. So I would like to start with Mumbai. For example, I would like to create my infrastructure in Mumbai. So I, as a customer of Flipkart, or I, an engineer from Flipkart, want to create servers. So for example, if you want to take Flipkart, a lot of servers are involved in it, right? So for example, there is some browse application, there is some cart application, there is some login page, and you also have payment page, right? So you have 4 applications. Okay, let's take it. So you have login application, you have cart application, you have catalog application, you also have payment application. Okay, so 4 different applications are running on the Flipkart page. Now what I would like to do is, I would like to create these servers and I would like to run applications on the top of it. So just for the ease of it, so I would like to go with just 3 services, just for the ease of it. Just don't want to create some confusion. So these 3 are the services that I want to run. If you want to run an application, what we learned, we need to create a server. So let's create a server. And since the market is on the top of Linux, so let's consider this server is Linux operating system is installed on the top of this server. And you have created 3 Linux servers. And on the top of the 3 Linux servers, what you are going to do is your developer has given you the application and you are going to install that application. That's it. Okay. And on the top of this, you are going to install cart application. So cart application is running on the top of it. And here you're running your catalog application. And here you're running your payment application. Okay, now you started doing business, your business is doing good, and people are able to browse the product and they're able to add the product and they're able to do the payments. All fine. All fine. Now, what happens if because of some XYZ reason, because of some any natural calamity, if you lose the whole place where your servers are hosted. If you lose this whole data center, what will happen to your application? What will happen to your application? Just consider right now we're talking about Flipkart. There can be hundreds and thousands of customers where they are running a number of applications and a number of servers in Mumbai's Amazon center. What will happen if this happens? What happens to the business? What happens to the business? What happened to the business? Obviously they lose their customer base, right? So as I said yesterday, we have discussed, so the company reputation and the cost of the product depends on the availability. Have you ever seen that Flipkart is down? Have you ever seen Gmail is down? Have you ever seen YouTube is down? So you need to design the things in such a way that keeping something called as high availability in mind. What is high availability? We'll talk about it. But Amazon even know natural calamities will happen. You know, if you keep every infrastructure in a single place, what will happen if you lose the whole infrastructure? And that's the reason no one will design things this way. Instead, what they do is they go with some other thing called as availability zone. Okay, Amazon even know that it should not create infrastructure this way. And that's the reason, okay, here Mumbai is not a physical place where the infrastructure is going to be there. It is just a physical location. Okay, it is just a geographical location. That's all. In Mumbai, there are three different regions. Okay, in Mumbai, there are three different zones. A zone is nothing but a physical data center. Okay, a zone is nothing but a physical data center. For example, Amazon in Mumbai has three different zones or three different data centers where their infrastructure is hosted. Okay, so you don't know where in Mumbai, but they are going to design this infrastructure keeping the availability in mind, and each and every physical location where the actual servers are going to be is called as zone. Okay, it's also called as availability zone, and they given us some names like some we'll talk about it, how the naming standards they follow and all. So they have some, depends on the type of region, they have those many physical locations or the data centers where the actual servers will reside. Okay, so in Mumbai, in three different parts of the Mumbai, they are going to create the servers. Okay, keeping the natural calamities or outages in mind. Okay, so this is one physical location, and this is one physical location, and this is one physical location. Now now when we are designing, even in training, we are going to design the solutions in such a way that even if any, because of any XYZ reason, if you lose the zone, if you lose one particular zone, still your business should operate. That's how we are going to design the approach. For example, the same cart, what now I'm going to do is I'm going to create two copies of it. Okay, I'm going to create two copies of it. For example, let's see. Okay, so I have two instances of cart. What I'm going to do is I'll create two servers and I'll install cart two times on two different servers. And both the servers, I don't keep it in a single place, because if I lose this zone, I'll lose both the applications. So what I'm going to do is I'll select cart in two different locations. Okay, fine. Now I'll create catalog. Okay, I'll use different thing. This is catalog. Okay, this is also a server where we have installed catalog on the top of it. Let's use a different color just to indicate these are the different servers which are running different applications. Now I'm going to run the catalog server. Okay, again, all of them are Linux servers. On the top of the server, we are going to install them applications. So I'm referring is placement, where I'm going to place it. Okay, now the other catalog server, card server, payment server also I'm going to create on the top of different server. So this time I'm going to use some different color. I would like to name it as payment. I'm going to payment in different location. Okay, in this situation, because of some XYZ reason, let's assume there is an earthquake or some natural calamity happened and you lose this availability zone 3. When you say you lose availability zone because of an earthquake, the entire data center, the availability zone is collapsed. Now, do you think that the business of the e-commerce application will still work or not? How many of you say yes and how many of you say no? I'm going to send a poll. How many of you say yes or how many of you say no? Let me say, will business still function or not? Okay. So guys, I'm going to send a poll. How many of you say yes or how many of you say no? Will the business work or not? I just sent a poll. Hope you guys received it. How many of you say yes or how many of you still no? Will still business work or not? Wonderful. Wonderful. Guys, I'll give 10 more seconds. Poll it. Pass a poll. All right. This is the first batch that I heard that 95% of the people messaged or elected or convinced that if you design this application this way, your business will still work. Why? Because you have designed the application keeping something called as high availability in mind. Okay, so this approach is called as high availability. This is how we are going to design the application. Okay, this is how we are going to design the application. Okay, in this case, even if you lose one zone, still your application will work because your application is running 2 more copies in 2 different zones. Okay, this is called as high availability. Okay, and even in our training, the projects that we are going to implement, keeping the high availability in mind, we are going to design. Okay, all right, guys. This is what we are going to do. And this is called as high availability. And you will achieve high availability only if there are multiple zones or multiple locations. Okay. If someone asks you what is high availability, okay, the answer should be like, so designing the solutions in such a way where it should be available all the time, even in case of hardware failure or natural calamity or whatsoever it may be. It is the ability of the system to continuously operate without failing without failing in any of the case. Okay, these kind of things are called as highly available, high available. Okay, so based on your target, okay, if you are designing a solution based on what is the availability that you are promising to your customer, based on that you need to design this solution. For example, if you are trying to design a solution that wants, okay, 99.99% up. Okay, so let me open this. For example, you're into a business where you want to promise your customer that I want to deliver a product that is 99.99% available. That means in a month, your application should not go beyond 4 minutes of downtime. Okay, this is called as 99.99%. When you're attending any interviews, okay, so how you ensure that the availability of the application, and what is 5 nines of availability, what is 2 nines of availability, what is 3 nines of availability. These are the most common questions that you encounter when you're applying for site reliability engineer jobs or cloud jobs. Okay, so majority, and 99.999% means, okay, achieving, okay, a maximum of 26 seconds of downtime in an overall for your application. And majority of the companies aim for this, but it's tough to achieve. So 99.99 is the best. Okay, you can think, hey Manu, why can't we achieve for 100%? Achieving 100% is practically impossible. Google, okay, so if you want to achieve something 100% available all the time, that is a false positive and it will never happen. So that's the reason almost all the companies aim for 99.999 and 99.9999. Okay, so there is a service called as Cloud Spanner in Google Cloud that offers 5 nines of availability. That means per month they can afford a maximum of 26 seconds of downtime. If customer has experienced more than 26 seconds of downtime, so the product will pay you for the penalty. And the cost of the product or the cost of the software will also be dependent on the availability that they are giving. Okay, so keeping this in mind, we need to design the solution. So, and this concept is called as high availability. And the physical location is called as availability zone, and region is nothing but the geographical location. The terms region and availability zone remains the same in almost all the major cloud provider. Okay, hope it's clear. All right, I could see no questions in the chat window. All right, let's proceed further. Now, one more question. How much time it takes in general if you want to install an operating system in your computer? How much time it takes? How much time it takes in general? Anyone? Let me send a poll. Usually how much time it takes, guys? Let me send you some 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 15 minutes. I just send you 4 answers. 1 hour. In general, what will be the ideal time? I just sent a poll. Usually, how much time it takes to install an operating system in your computer? In general. Okay, I'm getting good results. And majority of the people are telling that it takes minimum 30 minutes. Go ahead, guys. Okay, the winner of this race is, okay, majority of the people are telling if you want to install an operating system on your computer, it takes 30 minutes of time is the minimum time that they have mentioned. And 25% of the people mentioned it takes 60 minutes, and rest of the 25% mentioned it takes 1 hour of time. Fine. What if I say in cloud, it takes less than 2 minutes? In cloud, you can create a server with OS installed in less than 2 minutes. Do you believe it or not? That's the beauty of cloud. If you create any server on AWS cloud, it takes less than 2 minutes just to create a server and install operating system. Everything happens in less than 2 minutes. Do you believe it? Let me show you. Yes, Sandeep, you're right. It takes less than 2 minutes. Yes, you're telling 1 minute. You're absolutely right. Okay, how come it's possible? So guys, in cloud, the moment you say, I want a server, usually how you place a request is, you say, how you place a request. How you place a request. So how you place a request is, first, if someone asks you as a part, you join some company, and usually you get a request, hey, provision a server, I want to run some payment application. Hey, provision a server that our QA team wants to do some testing. Hey, can you please provision? When I say provision is a term which indicates create. Okay, there is a cloud terminology. Start adopting the cloud terminology. Okay, hey, I would like to provision a server with which has a capability to run this XYZ application. So immediately you need to ask, okay, what is the CPU that you're expecting? How much CPU you want? 4 cores, 8 cores, or 16 cores? And how much memory you want? Okay, how much memory you want? Okay, and what is the disk size that you're looking for? And also you need to ask what type of operating system that you want. And the next question, which is very, very important, you need to ask how long you want to run this server. Okay, how long you're planning to run this server. And the next thing, do you have approval for this? Okay, so if someone comes and asks you when you join any project, if someone asks you, you should not straight away go ahead and say that, yes, I know how to create a server, I'll straight away place a request. No, these are the things you need to ask. And in cloud and in any project, you should not provision any sort of resources, even if it is on cloud, without your manager or the infrastructure lead approval. Okay, so you need to understand how much CPU you want, how much memory you want, how much disk you want, what is the operating system you are looking for, how long you're planning to run this server, and do you have any approval or not. So once say the operating system, okay, then you are going to create a server. So how the infrastructure or the server creation happens in less than 2 minutes, including the operating system installation. Okay, so technically, if you create a server, usually people think an operating system is getting installed on the top of it. That is not a right answer. Okay, so for example, if you have created a server, okay, what Amazon does in the background is, okay, so there are some disks okay, storage disk that are already created with all the operating systems that you're mentioning. For example, I would like to create a Red Hat server. Okay, there will be a disk which is already available, which has operating system that is already installed and is readily available. The moment you say, I want a server with 4 CPUs and 16 GB of RAM, and also if you mention that I want to have a Red Hat server, what happens is the immediately the server gets provisioned, the resources are allocated, this disk will go and attach to the server. And that's the reason you're able to get the server in less than 1 minute. Technically, operating system is not getting installed. Operating system is already installed and is available on the top of a disk. You're just attaching the disk to the server. That's exactly what you are trying to do. For example, this is a server that you provisioned with 4 CPU and 16 gigs of RAM. And this is a Red Hat disk. Okay. A disk with Red Hat operating system installed on it. But do we really care how Amazon does all these things in the backend or not? We really don't have to care. But if you attend certain interviews, if someone want to roast you, these are the type of questions usually people will ask to roast others. How it's happening, what is happening in the background, how it works. Technically, you don't have to because that's what you're paying for. But if you want to know logical reason how it is happening in the background, this is how it is happening. And technically, it is not installing any sort of operating system. All it is doing is a disk will be created in the background, or a disk will already be there with the requested operating system that you mentioned, that simply goes and attaches. That's it. Okay. All right. This is what it happens in the background. Okay. All right, guys. Now, next thing. Come here. So you have a server. You created a server. For example, this is a Windows server, guys. Okay. Every one of you are aware of Windows. So this is a Windows server. This is a server which I have created. Okay. And it is created in North Virginia in the United States. Now you're working for a project and that project is getting executed from India. Okay. For example, if you're working for some consulting firm or any firm, the project is getting executed from India and you're in India and your company has given you a laptop. Now your manager told to update the software in that machine or to install some software on the machine or to shut down the machine. Okay. This is your machine, your computer. In general, how do you connect to that machine, guys? How do you connect to this machine? Anyone? Anyone want to talk? How you connect to the machine? Anyone who would like to speak?
RDC, remote desktop connections, normally.
Perfect. So someone says RDP. Anyone else? You can unmute and talk, guys.
With the IP address.
Through the
You're
VPN.
right. Yes, you're right. With the IP address.
Through VPN, connecting to the network or internet.
Okay. Anyone else? This is a Windows server. Okay. This is a Windows server. If you want to connect to the Windows server, you need to have some client software needs to be installed. Okay. Since it is a client machine, you need to install a software called as RDP. RDP stands for Remote Desktop Protocol. This is a software that needs to be installed on the computer from where you want to connect. So the moment you install the RDP, if you want to connect, it asks you, hey, what is the IP address of the machine that you want to connect? And what is the username of the machine that you want to connect? And what is the password of it? Okay, each and every computer that you use will have a username and password to give the identity. Not everyone in the internet can access, right? Only the users who are having a valid account can connect to the server, but using the software. And these kind of softwares are called as a client softwares. Okay, you need to install RDP client software on the top of your machine, and after giving all the details like IP address, what is the username, and what is the password, you can directly connect to the server. You can directly connect to the server. But this is only true if you're using Windows. If you're using Windows. But how about the same story if you're using Linux?
SSH, we will be connecting through SSH.
You're saying SSH. All right. What is SSH? Let's talk about it. If it is a Linux server, what is the story now? What is the story now? Let's say assume this is your computer, but this is a client server. Now this time you're not going to use this software called as RDP. Instead, you are going to use another software called as SSH client. Okay, you are going to install SSH client on the top of your computer, and using the same IP address, username, and password, you'll enter and you'll connect to this. Okay, SSH stands for secure shell. It is a protocol, by the way. Okay, SSH stands for secure shell. Okay, this is a software and this is the protocol that you use to connect to any of the Linux based machines. Okay, keep this in mind. Okay, if you join any project and if the project has Linux servers, then on the top of your computer you will have SSH installed by default. If not, I'm going to tell you how to install it. And if you want to connect to any of the Windows based machines, RDP is the standard way to connect. All right, all you do is just type RDP. Okay, so you'll get a client like this and you need to enter, like for example, mail.google.com is your server name, and you need to connect to this, and it asks you, hey, what is the username and password? And then you need to enter the username and password, and you'll be connecting to the Windows based machine. And this is called as RDP, remote desktop protocol. The story completely changes if you're using a Linux server. In Linux, we are going to use a common protocol called a secure shell. And this is the software I want every one of you to install on the top of your computer. Okay. All right, guys. So usually, guys, how you connect to the server? For example, you have your computer. How do you connect to your computer, first of all? How do you connect to your computer? So for example, Sandeep is there, and Sandeep has his own Lenovo computer, and he want to uh, uh, sign into the computer because he want to join our batch DevOps with AWS training, and he want to connect. What is the first action that he do? Anyone? What he has to do first? He
He
has
has to
to.
register.
No, you need to enter your username and password, right? Agree? You need to enter your username and password. So for example, my name is Manoj Verma. I'll enter my username, I'll enter my password. So it's called as authentication, proving yourself. Okay, typically, if you're a Windows guy, okay, by default, when you buy any Windows computer, what is the default user account which is there, guys? Anyone? Anyone? What is the default user account? So there is an account called as administrator.
Admin. Yeah.
Yes, admin or administrator. And this is the username, and you'll enter the password. And once you enter the username and password, you're going to connect to the server. Okay, this is called as authentication. This is Windows way of authentication. In Linux, authentication works in two ways. Okay, if you're having a Linux server, in Linux allows two ways of authentication. Okay, so proving yourself who you are is called as authentication. For example, if you have entered the name as Surendra and the password is password, if the password is incorrect, that means Surendra is not proving that he is not Surendra. The server is not going to allow you. Okay, so Linux allows two ways of authentication, and one is username and password, which is the most recommended way. Okay, and another way is username with keys. Okay, what is the keys? We'll talk about it. Okay, so typically in our training, even in corporate, everything goes with username and password. But Linux, there are certain companies where they also connect using keys. Okay, so this is not the recommended way. This is the recommended way of connection. But still in our training, I would like to show, just for today, I would like to show you how to connect using keys, because you join any company, okay, some of the other way you use these terms called as keys. Okay, and if you don't know this, how these keys work, okay, so you'll caught if you say that I have 5 years of experience, and if you don't know what is a key, definitely they can easily identify that you don't know anything. That much important basic concept this is. So I would like to talk, and I'm also going to tell this username with keys is the least used in the industry. Okay, this is the recommended way in the industry. This is the recommended way of connecting to your servers, and just learn it for your knowledge. Not suggested. Just learn for your knowledge. Just to ensure, just to not to prove that you don't know anything. Okay, so let's try to see what is key-based authentication. Okay, so key-based authentication or SSH key pairs. Okay, is a concept which has started on the top of Linux. So let's try to talk about it. Okay, when you say key pair, it is two files. Okay, when I say key pair, SSH key pair means two files. Okay, so one is public key and another is private key. Okay, what are the concept that I'm teaching is very important. Okay, because this is very common mistake, but a lot of people do. Okay, so this public key and private key are like your lock and key, your physical lock and physical key. For example, lock key pair, lock and key. Okay, for example, lock and key. Okay, so for example, if you take this lock, for example, you take this lock, and if you want to open this lock, danger lock or do not remove lock, this is the key you need to use. Okay, if you want to open this key, this is the, if you want to open this lock, this is the key you need to use. Even though the lock is from the same brand, you cannot open it with a different key, right? And this is a key pair combination. Okay, if you want to open this lock, you need to have this key. If you open this, if you use this key to open some other lock, it won't work. That means if you want to open this lock, you need to have this key. Same example, the key pair as well. So let's try to consider this lock. This is a lock symbol. Let's take it. The majority of the people fails to understand this and do a lot of mistakes. Okay, so this is very important. And if you're saying that you're 5 years, 8 years experienced engineer, and if you don't know this concept, people easily identify that you're cooking up stories. Okay, so this is very important to know. Okay, so this is a public key. All right, public key is just nothing like a lock. Okay, so when you say private key, it is like key. Key images. Okay, this combination, just by looking at this, okay, just by looking at this, if you want to, okay, if you want to, let me say, SSH key pair is nothing but two files. Okay, it's going to generate two files. So it includes two files. One is public key and another is private key. If you want to open this lock, you need to have this key. Okay, so if you are locking your apartment gate, if you are locking your flat gate or your door with a lock and key, anyone can see what is your lock, whether it can be Godrej lock or how the lock is looking or which brand of lock it is. But you don't prefer showing your keys to others, right? What if you show your keys to your neighbors? What if they know the pattern? They can duplicate the key and they can enter into your key and enter into your room and they can steal items, right? That means they are mimicking it like you. That means the key is supposed to be held by you only, but someone has seen this information and they're entering into it. So among lock and key, which is public information and which is private information? Which is public and which is private information, guys?
Lock is the public information and the key is the private information.
Exactly. This is absolutely sensitive. When you join any company, there are certain softwares which needs public key and private key. Okay, so what you do is immediately when you join any company, when they start giving you KT, they'll ask you, hey, I'll give you access to the all the tools. Can you give me the, can you generate your key and give me the, can you please give me your SSH key? This is how they ask. The moment you ask, you know, if you search on internet, you know how to generate the keys. But if you generate both the keys, that's fine. But if you give both the keys or if you give private key, it's easily understandable by the people who have asked that you don't know anything. Okay, so private key is very sensitive, which is not supposed to be shared by anyone. Okay, keep this point in mind. We are going to see how to generate all these things, but private key is something which is not supposed to be shared by anyone. Okay, keep this point in mind. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to create a Linux server. And on the top of the Linux server, okay, we are going to use the authentication mechanism as keys. Okay, so we are going to place that lock here. Okay, in order to connect, you as a user, in order to connect to the server on your computer, you need to have this key. If you want to connect to this server as the user, you are telling, you need to have the key on your computer. Which key will be there on your computer, public key or private key? Which key? Anyone? Which key will be there on your computer? Anyone? Anyone?
Public key.
Exactly. Public key or private key on your computer?
Private key.
Public key.
Private key would be there.
Let me send a poll, guys. Since I explained this topic, which key will be there on your computer?
Obviously, private key. Yeah.
Let me send a poll. Which key will be there, guys? Public key or private key? I want every one of you to answer this, because this is a very important question. And if you fail to, I mean, you join any company, you got a job, and if you say private key, public key, if you don't know the difference, you'll be caught. Okay, so guys, come on, send a response, come on your computer, whether you'll be having public key or private key. Still, the poll is open. Come on, respond, guys. Perfect. Come on. 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. 75% of the people mentioned private key is something which is supposed to be on your computer, and public key is something which is supposed to be on your lock. 75% of the people mentioned right, and the rest of the 25% of the people who mentioned that the private key is something which is supposed to be on the server is absolutely wrong statement. Okay, public key, this is your computer. For example, this is Bobby Brown computer. Okay, Bobby Brown has generated a key pair and he has given it to his lead. His lead has enrolled the pub key on the top of this server, so that if you want to connect to this server, you need to have this key. Now you can connect to this without the need of entering the password. All you need to do is you just need to say you're Bobby Brown, B Brown. That's all. You're connected without the need of it. Okay, but in case if you lose this key, or if you show the key, or if you lose this key, obviously Manoj Verma can enter into the server pretending to be like Bobby Brown. Okay, it's very important and you should not lose these keys. All right. Okay, so let's try to go ahead and start creating a server, and then we can proceed with that. Also, in order to use this SSH mechanism and all on your computer, every one of you, you need to install a software called as Putty. Okay, so Putty is one of the software which helps you in connecting to the server. Okay, Putty is a very reputed software. Even in any enterprise companies or any what do you say, corporate laptops, you can still install this software. Technically, you don't have to install; it's just a runner. Okay, if you are using a Windows software, if you are using a Windows laptop, please install Putty. If you are either using a MacBook or Linux machine or your Linux laptop, you don't have to do anything because you have the default terminal already on your computer. Okay, if you're using Windows, install this Putty. If you're using MacBook, you don't have to do anything. You have a default terminal. Okay, this is the only software that I expect from you guys to install. Okay, if you are a Windows guy, install it. Okay, how to install, I'm going to teach you. If you're using a Mac or Linux guy, you don't have to do anything. No action needed from your end. Since majority of the users that in this training are using Windows, so I would like to show you how to do that. Okay, perfect. Let's try to see that. Now what I'm going to do is I would like to go to the internet. The software is already installed on my computer. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. Just say putty, just type putty. Okay. The very first link, just click on download putty, a free SSH client. All you have to do is just click on it. Okay. And all you need to do is just choose the MSI Microsoft installer. Just click this 64-bit and click the software and you'll get a runner telling, hey, do you want to install the software or not? It's just like installing a VLC player. Click next, next, install. I'm not going to install because the software is already there on my computer. All you need to do is click on install. This is going to install on the top of your computer. Once it is installed, all you need to do is just type your Windows button and type PUTTY. You will get the software. All you need to do is just click this and enter the required details and you can connect. But since we don't have the server, let's try to create a server and see that. All right. Now let me try to sign in to my AWS account. Okay. I expect every one of you already have AWS accounts created. So what I would like to do is I would like to go ahead. Okay. 1 minute. Sandeep, we would call something called ID underscore RSA pub. So just wait for a minute, Sandeep. Let me start. All of them will be covered. Okay, Sandeep. Let me show you that. I have it in my agenda. So yeah. Sandeep, you would like to speak? If you want, yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Sandeep.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Whatever you said, whatever you posted, I'm going to address that. Just hold for a couple of minutes. All right.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Give me 10 minutes of time, guys. I'm going to cover it. Okay. Because majority of your questions will be addressed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign into my AWS account, Amazon Web Services, to create a server. So all I do is I just click on sign in button. And then you have two options, root user and IAM user. So don't choose anything. Just go with the default, go with the root user. What is an IAM user? We'll discuss this in the upcoming session, but for now, go with the default. Enter the Gmail address which you have used to create an AWS account and click on next. Now it asks you to enter the text image. Just type that. Enter this, enter the password, whatever the password that you have configured to use, just like that. The moment you click this, you get all the options that are available. This is how the home page looks like. Okay, this is how the home page looks like. Now, this is the page how it looks like when you sign in immediately. Okay, this is the account which I already have. And that's the reason you see some bills and all. But in your case, you don't see the cost. This is the page it looks like as soon as you sign in. Now, Amazon gives you the opportunity to create the servers or consume the infrastructure in any geographical region of your choice. For example, if I want to create infrastructure in North Virginia, all I do is you go to the top right corner. Okay, you go to the top right corner. Okay, there is a drop down here. There is a drop down. Now click on the drop down. Now you have an option, wait for a minute. You have a lot of places where you can create the infrastructure. For example, if you want to create your servers in North Virginia, or if you want to create your infrastructure in Mumbai. Okay, if you join any company, randomly you don't create North Virginia, Ohio, North California, no. Where your business is operating in that place, which is very close to it, you are going to create. In my case, I would like to go with North Virginia, okay? Because everything is related to bill, right? So even in lab, I request every one of you to choose North Virginia as the preferred location, because among all the available regions by Amazon, North Virginia is one of the region where you get most of the services for a very lesser price. And if Amazon wants to start any service, Amazon is going to test them first in North Virginia. And this is the first region which was started by Amazon back in 2011. For example, if you see this, Virginia, It is North Virginia. Yeah. If you see this, Amazon, when they started their business in 2006, this is the first region which was launched in 2006. It's so big, it has 6 availability zones. This is the one and only region which has 6 availability zones. It's a very big zone. Okay. And at the same time, this is the only region which has 6 availability zones. Okay. And when compared to all the regions, North Virginia is little inexpensive. Okay, the cost, the billing, everything are somewhere less here. Okay. So even in our training, we prefer going with North Virginia, because today if you create in North Virginia, and tomorrow if you create servers in Australia, and day after tomorrow if you create in Cape Town, you don't have any tracking and you'll end up paying a lot of money. So everyone prefer going with North Virginia only. North Virginia gives you the better pricing when compared to other regions, and almost all the new features that Amazon is testing, you can avail most of them in North Virginia. So keeping that request in mind, I request every one of you to start consuming the infrastructure on AWS in North Virginia. This is my request. Okay, so I have selected North Virginia. Amazon, okay, for technical purpose to represent the region, each and every region will have one particular name: US East 1, US East 2, US West 1, US West 2. Likewise, you don't have to remember everything. Just remember US East 1 is North Virginia. Okay, just select that. Okay, now whatever the infrastructure that you create, everything will be here. Okay, for example, if Amazon is experiencing any sort of issues or anything, you can find that information here. So click this Amazon Health. For example, if Amazon is experiencing any outages, or if they're letting you know that we might experience some downtime during this time, all such notifications will be shown here. This is also common questions in interview. How do you ensure that this particular service is functional? For example, if some customers reports you, hey, we are not able to connect to the database. Hey, our servers, we are not able to launch the services. The very first thing that majority of the people do is they come to the health check panel of the AWS account, and they check and they see whether any issues are reported in this particular space or not. Okay, if Amazon experiences any downtime or any service outages because of any reason, they report it here. Okay, this is also one of the first option everyone prefer coming and checking here. Okay, now next point is AWS is all about services. Okay, AWS is all about services. AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. Okay, which means they offer everything in the form of a service over the web. Okay, you want to create a server, you need to consume some service. You want to create a database, you need to consume a service. You want to create a storage disk, you need to consume a service. Everything is a service in AWS. Similarly, our requirement is to create a server. Since you want to create a server, you need to consume a service called as EC2. EC2 stands for Elastic Cloud Compute. Okay, this is the service which offers infrastructure as a service. How the billing works, all these things we'll discuss tomorrow. But to start with, this falls under the category of IaaS, infrastructure as a service, and the name of the service is Elastic Cloud Compute. Now we are going to consume this service, and then we are going to create a server. Let me go ahead and create a server. So come here, and on the top, I will search. Okay, if you want to find all the services, just click this. It's going to show you the list of services that Amazon offers. But I'm interested in EC2. I'll just search EC2. Okay, so EC2 is a service which offers servers to you, infrastructure as a service. In Amazon world, we call them as instances. Okay, because a server is a physical machine. Okay, but these are not the physical machines, they are the virtual machines. Technically, what is doing Amazon is Amazon will have some big servers, very big servers with 128 gig of RAM and 32 core CPU. It's a big server. Now on the top of this, okay, you can create your server. For example, if you have placed a server creation request with, you just need just 1 GB RAM and 1 CPU. This is your requirement. For that, you don't have to buy the whole server, right? Okay, if you want to create a server, for example, I would need a Linux server. All I do is I'll just create a server, and I'm going to mention I want 1 CPU and 1 gig of RAM. Now Amazon is going to provision a small machine on the top of this big machine. And these machines are also referred as servers, but technically these are virtual machines. But in Amazon world, we call them as instances. Okay. Although in projects and all, people prefer calling them as, hey, create the server, restart the server. But technically in the space of Amazon world, we call them as instances. Even if I use instances or virtual machine or server, all I'm referring is to server only. Okay, we don't care whether it is a physical machine or virtual machine, but just consider the word instance refers to the virtual machine only or a server. Perfect. Now, what's next? So I would like to go to this instances, click on the instances. Now I would like to launch an instance. Okay, now I would like to launch an instance. So I would like to name my server as Linux server. Okay, now this is my development machine, or I would like to mention it as Linux server dev. Now it is asking you application and OS image. Okay, so the disk we have represented, right? So how the installation is happening, all of the things, how come it's able to provision your server in less than 2 minutes? So it's because of some disk that we have discussed, right? And the disk with an operating system is typically referred as AMI. Okay, AMI stands for Amazon Machine Image. Few people will call it as a AMI, few people will refer it as AMI. And if you're working, these two are the common names that people use. Few of them will refer it as AMI, few of them refer it as AMI, or whatever it's, maybe it's just an Amazon Machine Image. Okay, so this Amazon Machine Image you need to consume. Okay, you need to select which machine you want. In our case, we want to go with CentOS or Red Hat. So I would like to browse more AMIs. Okay, now there are a lot of options available. So marketplace and community AMIs. So marketplace typically, if a company like IBM makes some software and if they want to sell it, they can sell it here in the marketplace. Okay, and whatever the images or whatever the AMIs that are free that are available in the community space. In community space, majority of them you get for free. Now I would like to create a server CentOS of version 7. Just say just CentOS 7. It's going to show you the list of available images. Now, all you need to do is you just need to select which image you want, and then you can proceed further. So for example, there is an image which is telling US East 1, something. Now just click select this image. Okay, I don't want to deal with much options. I just want to create a server. That's it. Okay, now this is the image that you have selected. And what is this T2 micro, T3 micro, and all? Okay, so guys, Amazon offers you servers with CPU memory combination. Okay, if you create a server with 16 GB RAM and if you do just one CPU, that is not a best combination and you don't get best performance. In order to get the best performance, there is a best combination. If you're using this much CPU, if you use this much amount of memory, then the performance of the machine is good. If you're using this much amount of memory, the minimum CPU that is expected is these many CPUs. If you follow that, you get the better performance. That combination is called as instance type. Amazon has already predefined all such things, and we can choose any of it. Okay, so based on the number of CPUs that we select, you get the instance type. For example, T2 micro is something which gives you 1 CPU and 1 gig of RAM. Okay, and it falls under the category of free tier eligible. Wherever you see the label free tier eligible, only those instances are free. Okay, as a part of the free tier, rest of them are not free as a part of the free tier. Okay, so based on the combination, for example, you want to create a server, very big server with 96 CPUs, and you want close to 200 gigs of RAM, you can choose something called a C5 metal. For example, if you want to create a server with 4 CPUs but 8 gigs of RAM, you can go with C5 large. So likewise and like forth, each and every combination has some name, T2 micro, T3 micro, C4 large and all. You don't have to memorize all of these things. Okay, so for now, I would like to create a server and I would like to go with the T2.micro, which is going to give me 1 CPU and 1 gig of RAM, and it is a part of the free tier, so I don't have to worry about it. Now, what I'll do is I'll just click key pair. Okay, whether you want to proceed with key pair or you don't want to proceed with key pair. If you say I don't want to proceed with key pair, you need to enter username and password, which you should be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, you can generate a key pair. Okay. Now what I would like to do is I would like to generate a key pair. Now, since this is my batch 54, I would like to name this as B54. Okay, batch 54. And what type of key pair it is, just go with the default RSA. And whether you want to go with public key PPK or PEM, there are two types of private keys that are available. If you are using putty, in our case, we are going to go with putty. Every one of you prefer this PPK option because PPK stands for putty private key. If you are using SSH client as putty, you need to choose PPK option. Just say create a key pair. That's all. Okay, now a key is generated and it is downloaded. Okay, if you see this, it is available in my downloads and the name of the file is batch54 ppk. Now I'll just say launch the instance. I have selected the batch54 key. That means as a part of the server creation, this key, the public key, will be attached to the server. That means I have created a server and that server will have the B54 key. Okay, so B54 public key is available to this. B54 public key. I don't prefer whether it is a public key or private key because 80% of the people mentioned it's public key. So here I'm going to, on my computer, I already have the PPK private key file already. Now I'll connect to this. Okay, now come here and try to say, don't choose any other options. My goal for today is just to create a server. I don't care any other option because tomorrow we are going to again come here and talk about all these things again. But for now, my goal for today is to create a server, and I would like to connect to the server using SSH username and password, username and key. That's it. Okay, now your server is started. Let's wait for it. Okay, now the server status is pending. Okay, when the status is pending, you have placed a request with Amazon, but Amazon has not allocated the resources to you. Since we are all using free tier accounts, our accounts will be given with lesser priority when you compare to the paid accounts. Okay, so when Amazon is experiencing high demands, high capacity demands and all, you don't get this resource allocated quick. Okay, but let's wait for a minute and see whether it is really provisioning or not. Now the status has turned from pending to running. What all states it has changed? Pending. Now the status has been changed to running. When the status is in pending, that means Amazon has not given the resources set to you. You also see some option here called as status checks. What exactly the status checks meant? So in the bottom, we have some options called as status checks. Click the status checks. There are two status checks here. If someone complains, hey, I'm not able to connect to the server, hey, this application is not working, the very first thing that we do is we come here and we also check what are the health checks of the system. This is also called as status checks or health checks. There are two types of checks: system status checks and instance status checks. Okay, so system status checks and instance status checks, both of them should be operational, then only we can connect to the server. So system status checks and instance status checks. System status checks and instance status checks. System status checks are like the hardware checks, the underlying hardware checks. And instance status checks are like software checks. Because your server is created on the top of a physical server, right? It is checking the status of the physical server, and software check is nothing but the actual server, your virtual machine status checks. For your server to operate, both of them should be green or both of the health checks to be qualified. Then only you can connect to the server. In our case, let's see whether the checks are qualified at or not. Okay, let's wait for it. If you see this, the status has been changed from, okay, both the checks, wait for it. Both of them are showing running. Okay, let's come here and try to connect to the server. Okay, so copy the public IP address. Okay, IP stands for Internet Protocol. In order to connect to any of the computer, any of the computing machine, you need to use a public IP address. Okay, there are two types of IP address again, public IP and private IP. We'll talk about them in our networking classes in detail, starting from what is an IP. But for now, the core understanding is if you want to connect to a server, you need to have an IP address of the server. All I do is I open my putty. I'll mention the IP address of it. Don't change anything else. And in the left pane, you have an option called as SSH. Left to that SSH, there is a plus button. Click that. And all you need to do is click the auth, AUTH, or authentication. Browse from your computer, supply the private key, batch 54 PPK. That's it. Now you need to enter who is the username. Accept it. The username is CentOS, and you don't have to enter the password. That's it. You are connected. You are connected, guys. So you have not entered any username, or you have not entered any password. With just username, you are able to connect. This way of authentication is called as key-based authentication or SSH key pair-based authentication. Okay, which was very, very famous, but it is not used in reality in any of the projects. Very, very less places you see them. But if you are using any Linux-based softwares or any open source softwares, so for majority of the times you will also see this, and that's the reason I have taught this. Tomorrow we'll see how can we connect using username and password. Okay, so in our upcoming trainings also, we are not going to consume, or we are not going to connect to the servers using username and keys. Instead, we go with something called as username and password, because using username and password is the industry standard. Throughout the training, we always try to stick to the industry standards. So as per this, suggested approach is username and password. Tomorrow I'll show you how to connect to the same Linux server using the username and password. Once you are done with the training, once you're done, so assignment for you guys is I expect every one of you to create a server and connect to the server using SSH key pair. And once you're done with the practice, just terminate the server. When you say terminate the server, that means you're destroying the server. Okay, I don't want this server anymore. Just destroy the server. Okay, so yeah, assignment for you. So the assignment for you is I want every one of you to create a server and connect to it using a username and password. Assignment. Create a server, EC2 server. With CentOS 7. Use key pair authentication. And connect to it. Okay, this is what I expect from you guys. Okay, I want every one of you to give your best. Okay, if you are doing all the assignments on a day-to-day basis, you can make some good progress. And that's for today. I'm good. And also, guys, one more very important update. Okay, meeting link remains the same. I'm repeating from the beginning. Meeting link remains the same for the next till Saturday. The meeting link remains the same. So you'll get the session recording to your to your WhatsApp number directly. Okay, so as I said, the session timings remain the same, Monday to Saturday, morning 6 to 7:30 India time. Or if you're joining from States, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Eastern time at the timings. Okay, I'm good. So if you have any questions, I'm good to take up the questions. We are good. All right, let me take up the questions. Okay, so yeah, I'm good. So let's take up the questions. So before asking, let me try to address the questions that are posted in the window. So Pooja, can you please share the steps for Mac for connecting to the server? So Pooja, if you're using a Mac, it's a very straightforward thing. You just right click your button. You have an option called as terminal. Just click the terminal. All you need to do is SSH, username is CentOS @ IP address. That's all. You'll be connected to the server. Okay. All right.
And you mentioned that we need to select from drop down that putty something. So if I'm using MacBook, then how we can proceed?
Perfect. That's a good question. So even there, you need to download the keys, right? Once you download the key, all you need to do is SSH-I, key name, SSH-I key name. That's all. This is the step that you need to do. This is a command. SSH-I key name followed by CentOS @IP address. Okay. And if you're not comfortable doing it from here, you can also do it from the same command line. Okay, just click his in the Amazon. Here you have a button, right? This button is called as Cloud Shell button. This button is called as Cloud Shell. You'll get a live terminal, just like, okay, your MacBook. Okay, so all you can do is you can connect from here as well. Okay, SSH. Just a second, my annotation was there. You can download the key here, SSH CentOS @IP address. Okay, followed by the key, whatever the key that you have downloaded. Okay, since I don't have a MacBook, I'm showing in a command line. So all you need to do is just right click on your MacBook. There is an option called as terminal. Click the terminal. The moment you click the terminal, you get a shell like this. All you need to do is SSH-I and a key name followed by CentOS, which is nothing but the username @IP address. It is just like if you ask me what is your email address, you'll say Bobby Brown @gmail.com, right? Here, Bobby Brown is a username. Gmail.com is a server name. Similarly, CentOS is a username. IP address is it's just like the identity. Okay, but don't worry about it. If you're not able to connect also, that's fine. Tomorrow I'm going to start with connecting the servers using username and password. If you have any challenges, just connect with me. I can help you with that. Okay, SSH-I. So just like same, even in your MacBook, it remains the same. You right click it, click on the terminal, you'll get a terminal. And on the top of it, SSH-I key name, CentOS, IP address. That's it. Okay, answers your question, Pooja? Okay, so Vikanksha, region selection dropdown is disabled in account, not able to. Vikanksha, my sincere request, not just her, anyone, please don't practice while the session is in progress, because you are going to get the session recording in some time. Okay, so when you practice, when I'm teaching, you lose attention. So my sincere request to everyone, if possible, don't do practice or don't open any other things, just focus on the session. Vikanksha, if your account is recently created, just wait for some time. If not, I'll tell you how to activate it. Okay, or you can also choose any other region for now. It takes sometimes 1 or 2 days. You can also choose any other region for now. Okay, that's not a problem. But once the North Virginia option is enabled, prefer that. Okay, you can choose any region of your choice which is enabled to you. I hope I answered it, Vikanksha. For Windows, we use PEMKey, and for Linux, we use PPK. Sandeep, you are 100% right. But just to add on Windows also, we can use PPK. And Srimati Radha, on question, please go ahead, Srimati Radha. Go ahead. You can talk, Srimati Radha. I just give you the unmute option.
Yes, hi Manu. What is the difference between while entering using the username and password and username with keys?
There is no difference between. There are two ways of authentication. One of the authentication is with username and a key, and another way of authentication is username with a password. There are two different ways. That's it.
Okay. There is no difference in the password or anything.
Nothing.
Only the way we are entering the password is different.
That's it. There are two different ways that Linux offers, so we are using both of them. But if you ask me what is recommended way, the recommended way is always username and password.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you can lower your hand. Sandeep, yeah, go ahead. Vagish, Shavanti, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess you kind of answered my question. I was about to ask, if I keep changing the region, North Virginia to Mumbai to Hyderabad to some Australian region. So will that, affect in the building? I mean, will it be more, or it will be just some 2% more or 3% more? Only a slight difference.
Not really. First of all, the practice itself is a wrong practice, by the way, because we are starting fresh, try to learn the best practices. So yeah, you're open to do that, but yes, you lose track of where things are. But even in reality, when you join any project, there won't be resources in 2 different regions or 3 different regions. Assume that you are learning something in this project, so assume that we are in North Virginia. That's it. But to answer your question, yes, billing varies because everywhere law of the land varies, right? For example, in India, we have GST. In states, there is some different tax. For example, in EU, they have sales tax. So depending on the type, area of the land, law of the land, taxation and billing varies. Okay. So to answer your question, yes. but it's tough to track. So let's prefer only one region till we stabilize, but we'll get more understanding, Vagish. Okay,
Sure. Thank you.
perfect. So Shavanti, go ahead.
Hi, Manoj. Actually, I'm using my personal laptop right now. So,
Hmm.
is it okay to inform? Is it okay to install this in corporate laptop?
Yeah, you can. You can ensure you are not connected to VPN. Yeah.
So I can install Putty, right?
Yeah. But prefer going with personal laptop if you have. But in the unlikely event, yeah, anything is fine. Ensure you are not connected to VPN. Okay,
Thanks, Manoj.
no problem. And yeah, Karthik, go ahead. Surendra, go ahead. Surendra Pabalu.
Yeah, if you want to give you an access to some other person, like we have created a server, right?
Mhm.
We want to give you an access to some other person with that key pair. We can share that PPK file to them, right?
No, it's like sharing your password. No,
Like
you
if-
should not. The moment you
if
share your PPK, they'll understand that you don't know anything. You should not do that.
like if you want to give you an access, like we want to give some other, we want to give, means we can share, right?
Okay, if you want to create a, for example, why you want to share, everyone should have their own account, right? Your Gmail is surendra@gmail.com. My address
They
is.
want to they want to work in our account, like some other.
Then we
They
create a
want to,
username and password. Okay.
to our account, we need to create another username and password. We want to give
No. This is
in
a
our
server.
server.
This is a server, and the server will be used by a lot of users. A X user will be there, Y user will be there, Z user will be there, A user will be there, B user will be there. Okay. So we create multiple user accounts. How to create the user account is a topic which we will cover in the user management.
Yeah.
Okay, but how to delegate it? It's a nice question, but we are not going to share our account. The reason why we create account is to ensure accounting is in place. Okay, we should not stir them or share them. That's the idea behind it. All right, let me stop the
Hi, Manoj.
recording.
Dilip here.
So tomorrow we're gonna meet the same time. Okay, so meeting link remains the
Hello.
same. Yes.
And,
Go ahead.
just I have one question that we will be having the AWS free tier limits, right?